Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. Today I'm going to show you a quick card that you can do last minute for the Christmas cards that you forgot to make. This may not look like a quick card, but I did multiples of this one this year and it went surprisingly fast, so let's give it a go. Here are the supplies that I'm going to be using today. We will be using a smooth watercolor paper. I've cut that to be 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. The one that I chose to use is a 140 pound. Since I am doing watercoloring on it, that just makes it a little bit easier for not making your paper wrinkle up. The frame that we're going to be doing around the card is going to be cut to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And then we will do a card base that I have cut from an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I cut that in half, and then I took one of those halves and I have folded that in half. We'll only be using one stamp set today. It's going to be the Sweet Poppy Robin and Holly A6 stamp set. And you can see the robin there, and then we're going to use the Peace on Earth stamp as well. We are going to be using just 3 basic colors, which is going to be a red, a green, and a brown, but we're going to use 2 shades of each. So whatever inks that you have, just be sure that you have a lighter shade and a darker shade. So what I've chosen to do for my reds is to use Crackling Campfire, the Distress Inks by Tim Holtz, Candied Apple, Peeled Paint, Forest Moss, Vintage Photo, and Walnut Stain. For our basic stamping, we're going to use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. You will also need to have some water. I have mine just in a spray bottle here, and a paintbrush. And then we will need some kind of running tape or glue. I like to use running tape, but you can use a paper glue as well to put our card together. And that is basically all we're going to need. I will be using my stamping platform as well to mount my card-ons, and I have a little sticky grid down underneath, and that way I don't have to worry about messing with magnets. All right, so let's get started working on our project. So as you can see from my example, I have not done anything with the background because I think that having the beauty of just the plain simple card without a background is what you're going to want to have for this particular thing. So we're going to start out with our stamping platform and our smooth watercolor paper. So what I'm going to do is just put my watercolor paper down on my sticky grid, and then I'm going to position my robin over here excuse me, on this side just a little bit so that I can put my Peace on Earth over here to the left. And since this is small enough, I can actually go ahead and just stamp both of these at the same time. So I'm going to get that stuck to the surface there. And then I'm going to ink up my stamp using our VersaFine Clair Nocturne. Alright, and then we're just going to make sure, whoops, I've got a little bit of ink there on my grid, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off so I don't get it on my card. Alright, then we're just going to make sure that we get a really nice smooth impression. Open that up. And I think we've got a really good first impression there. I like using the stamping platform in case we don't get a good one. All right, now all we have to do is start doing our watercoloring, and believe it or not, it won't take very long to do that. So I'm going to start off by doing the green. Let me set my stamping platform aside. We won't be needing that anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my colors here on my work surface. I've got this glass work surface, so it works really well. And then we're going to add some water and basically just do a real quick watercolor paint. So I'm starting out with peeled paint, and that will be our lighter background green that we will use for the leaves. All right, add just a little spritz of water over here. Dip your paintbrush in the water, pick up some of the ink, and then you're just going to put down a solid green on all of the leaves. Okay, and then once you have your basic layer down, we will move on to doing a little bit of highlighting. And with that, I'm using the Forest Moss. And we'll do the same technique where we'll put some of the ink down. Add a little more water there. And pick up that darker green. And then what we're going to do, you can see your stamp already shows you where the darker areas are. Let's see if I can move that in just a little bit without getting it out of focus too much. And all we're going to do is take that darker color and just concentrate in those areas where you see that the stamp has already indicated a little bit darker. You don't need to do a whole lot, just a little bit to give it some depth. And then we'll move on to the next leaf. Alright, and then that's all we're going to do on our green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and spritz a little water and wipe up the ink that I have here so I don't get it mixed in too much with my red. And then I'm also going to just clean my brush off just a little bit by spraying some water on it and wiping it on my cloth. And then that kind of gets the greens out of the brush. You can also go and wash it in the sink if you'd like to before you move on to your next color. So now what we're going to do is start with our crackling campfire, and we're going to use that on the robin's breast and on the berries. Same process. Put some ink down on our work surface. Get a little bit of water. And then just begin to paint our robin. And again, we're using the lighter color first so that we can get a base down before we go back in and add just a little bit of shading. then we're going to do the same thing with our berries. Alright, now once we've got those done, we can move on to the candied apple, which is just a little bit darker and brighter shade of a red, as you can kind of see there from where I've put it on the side there. Again, same process. Dip our paintbrush, and here we're just going to add some up here just to give this the shape and the feel of some shadowing. You can add a little bit of water to your brush and brush out with the water to kind of blend it into the lighter area. Maybe go in just closer to the top just a little bit and add a little bit more of the darker shade of red. And if you like to, you can add just a little tiny bit. Let me get a little more water here. And let that blend up just a tiny bit. So now, as you can see, we've got some shading in there, and that gives a little bit more depth. Then we're going to go in, and you've kind of got these little semicircles on your berries, a little right there, and that's where I'm going to concentrate more of the deeper color, just kind of in that little almost moon shape. And so that helps your berries to get a little bit more of a round look to them. All right, and now we are ready to move on to the brown. Now, as we did before, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my work surface here. Clean off my brush quickly. And then move on to the brown. So we'll start out with our vintage photo, which is just a little bit lighter shade of the brown. And as you can see on our example, we're just doing right at the very top of our robin and his tail, and then we're going to do the tree trunk. And again, the process that we did like before, we're using this just as our lighter base color. So I'm just going to take that and paint it right there along where the top of his head and his wings are pretty obvious. I think from the stamp you can kind of see where the bottom of the wing ends, right about here. Okay, so just put that quick base coat down. I'm going to do that on the tail as well. And then we're going to do it on the tree branch. Now, a little trick, it's going to be really hard to see, but you can kind of see right there where I went out of the edge of the branch. So if I just get some water and try and get just a little bit of water only where I got out of the lines, then I can actually make that fade just a little bit. I'm going to take a paper towel or a cloth, and then it doesn't look quite as obvious if you get out of the lines. Alright, so now we are ready to do our darker color. This will be our shading, and once again on the wings and on the branch it kind of shows you where on the stamp exactly where you can put your darker shading. So we'll get a little water in our darker shading, and then we're just going to go right where those darker areas are. And you can go a little outside of that area. Just do it so it looks like you've got some depth and some definition. It gives them a little bit of dimensionality so you don't have to worry about your bird looking flat. And so you can see where we've added a little bit of depth there. And now we're going to do the same thing on his tail. I'm going to probably concentrate with it mainly on the center part of his tail. And then maybe just do a tiny little bit where some of those dots are. But mainly concentrating where, because you can see on the stamp that's where they've got a lot of the dots as well. Alright, then we move on to the tree branch, concentrating kind of on the lower part of the branch, which is where you're going to have your darker shadows. That gives that a little bit of depth. Add just a hair more. Distinguish that out for us. Alright, and then we only have one more step, and I forgot to show you at the beginning when I was showing the supplies. We are going to also use the hickory smoke. That's going to be added into our bird to help give that shadowing once again. So I'm going to clean up my work surface. And clean up the brush. And I'm going to double spray that one just because the hickory smoke is going to be a much lighter color. So I want to make sure I get as much of that out of there as I can. Alright. Take our hickory smoke, spray a little water down, and then once again you can see where the shadows, where they put the dots. I'm just going to take and paint right where those shadowy dots are. And that gives our bird some really good definition there. Get a little more down there on the bottom where the shadows are going to be the thickest. All right, and that is all with the painting that we need to do. I'm going to try and see if I can get him up here closer for you. Get the focus to work. But now you can kind of see where we've done all of our shadowing. All right, so now we are ready to go ahead and put our card together. You wipe up this ink so I don't put my elbow or the project down in it. I will be using the running tape, but like I said, if you want to use a regular paper glue, you're welcome to do that. And all I'm going to do is stick this down to my frame. And then we will get our card base and do the same thing. Take that and add that to the card base. And there we have our finished card, and it really didn't take very long to do that. And like I said, I actually did these for my Christmas cards this year, and just did multiples. I just stamped a whole bunch at one time, and then I sat down and did the watercoloring, and it just didn't take me hardly any time at all. So I hope that you will give this a try. So thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. Give this beautiful quick card a try for doing last minute Christmas cards for this year, or you could make them for next year. I'm also planning to make the robin this spring by massing out the holly leaves and adding in some spring branches and flowers. I hope to do a tutorial showing that technique soon. So remember to check out the DellBellosDesigns.com website for more tutorials on the design team page. Have a great day.